OpenAI just unveiled its brand new model, GPT-5. And let me tell you, they are not messing around. They're calling it a monumental leap forward. So, what exactly makes this new AI so special?
Well, here's the big idea, straight from the top. CEO Sam Altman says the jump in intelligence is so massive that using GPT-5 isn't like chatting with some smart assistant anymore. Nope. It's like having a PhD-level expert on call, ready to consult on pretty much any subject you can think of.
And to really get a feel for how big a deal this is, you got to look at where we've been. You know, Altman used to call the early GPT-3 a high school student. Sometimes brilliant, yeah, but also kind of frustrating. GPT-4o was more like a college student. Definitely useful, but still had a lot to learn. With GPT-5, we've arrived at a whole new destination, a genuine expert. This isn't just another small step up, it's a total game changer.
Okay, so you might be thinking, PhD level? Is that just some clever marketing slogan? Well, OpenAI says absolutely not, and honestly, they brought the receipts. Let's dig into the benchmarks and see just how much smarter this new model really is.
First up, coding. And we're not talking about some simple academic pop quiz. The SW Bench, this test here, it measures how well it handles messy, real-world software engineering problems, the kind of stuff that developers wrestle with every single day. And you can see right there, GPT-5 makes a pretty significant jump in performance.
But it's not just about slinging code. The MMU benchmark, this thing is all about reasoning across different kinds of information. You know, text, diagrams, charts, the whole shebang. And this is where it gets kind of wild. GPT-5 doesn't just beat the old models, it actually scores higher than the average human expert. Let that sink in. It can reason through complex stuff better than most of us can.
And what about high-level math? That's always been a super tough nut for AI to crack. Well, look at this. GPT-5 is showing exceptional performance on the AMI. That's the qualifying exam for the International Mathematical Olympiad, folks. This points to a whole new level of deep, abstract reasoning.
Of course, none of those amazing scores mean a thing if you can't actually trust the answers, right? Which is why OpenAI says they made reliability a huge priority. They're claiming this is their most factual, most trustworthy model ever, with way fewer of those weird hallucinations and errors we saw in older versions.
All right, benchmarks are one thing. But what does this PhD in your pocket actually do? So enough with the charts, right? Let's get to the demos and see how this power translates into real-world stuff that is, frankly, mind-blowing. We've seen the numbers, we've heard the hype. So what happens when you put this thing into action with just a simple request? Let's see.
Okay, this demo was just incredible to watch. The user asks for a quick, interactive demo to explain the Bernoulli effect. You know, the basic physics of how airplanes fly. GPT-5 just automatically decides, yep, this needs deep thought, reasons through the physics itself, and then spits out almost 400 lines of complex code. And just like that, in 2 minutes, a fully interactive physics simulation that you can actually play with. A human developer would take days to do that. This took moments.
And it's not just for technical stuff. The improvement in writing is just wow. They asked it to write a eulogy for the older models. GPT-4o came up with something that was, fine, but it felt like a template. GPT-5, on the other hand, wrote with rhythm, with nuance, with actual emotional weight. I mean, just look at that line. It helped people soften emails and say things they could not quite say alone. That's not just writing code. That's understanding people.
And the demos just kept on coming. In a few minutes, GPT-5 built a whole French learning app, complete with a little custom game with a mouse and cheese. It whipped up a professional, interactive financial dashboard for a CFO from scratch. It even made this beautiful, interactive 3D castle with guards and cannons you could fire and a whole balloon-popping minigame. This is literally software on demand.
Now, with this much power, you have to ask the big questions, right? How do you keep it safe? And how do you get it into everyone's hands responsibly? Let's talk about OpenAI's plan for that.
So a huge piece of the puzzle is this new approach they call safe completion. You know how the old system would either do exactly what you said or just hit you with a hard "I can't do that"? Well, this new system is way more nuanced. It tries to be as helpful as it possibly can within safe boundaries. It's less like a brick wall and more like a helpful guardrail.
Here's a perfect example of how that works. Someone asks for details on lighting pyrotechnics. An older model might just give you dangerous instructions, or it might just shut down completely. GPT-5 takes a smarter path. It explains why it can't give you direct instructions, and then it points you towards official safety guidelines. So it's still helpful, just not dangerously so.
And honestly, here's the best part. It's rolling out right now. It's already becoming available to free, Plus, and Pro users, and enterprise and education users are getting access next week. This is huge. For the very first time, OpenAI's top-of-the-line model is available to free users. Everyone gets to try this.
So, beyond the killer demos and all the benchmarks, let's talk about the real-world impact. How is this kind of technology already changing people's work and their lives?
I want you to meet Carolina Millen. Her entire world was turned upside down when she got diagnosed with an aggressive cancer at just 39. She first found out by looking at her online patient portal, and the only words she could understand in this complex medical report were invasive carcinoma. As you can imagine, she said she completely panicked.
So in that moment of pure panic, she took a screenshot and put it into ChatGPT. It immediately translated all that medical jargon into plain English she could actually understand. And later, when she was facing a really tough treatment decision where even her doctors disagreed, she used the tool to understand all the nuances, to weigh the pros and cons, and to advocate for herself. It empowered her, you know? It helped her make an informed decision when the stakes for her and her family could not have been higher.
And that kind of profound personal impact, it scales all the way up to the biggest companies in the world. The life sciences giant Amgen is using it to speed up drug design. The bank BBVA is cutting down financial analysis that used to take 3 weeks into just a few hours. And Oscar Health is using it for clinical reasoning. A transformation is happening across entire industries.
So all of this leaves us with one final massive question. GPT-5 isn't just an upgrade, it's a fundamental shift from a clever assistant to a team of experts that you can summon on demand right in your pocket. The demos we saw today, they're just the very beginning. The real story is what happens next when this incredible power is in everyone's hands. What problems will we solve? What ideas will we bring to life? What will you build?